up on this Thursday edition of Newsline at noon, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un makes no major changes to his government, avoiding further unrest after the execution of his powerful uncle late last year. In a move expected to undermine Korea's new opposition leader Ahn Cheol-soo, the main opposition party backtracks on its election pledge to overhaul the party nomination system for local elections in June. Plus, China's chief nuclear negotiator is expected to visit Washington soon as South Korea, the U.S., and Japan consider easing the conditions for resuming dialogue with Pyongyang. These stories and more on Newsline at noon. Thanks for joining us. You're watching Newsline at noon. I'm Ju in Seoul.
Very good to have you with us. I'm Mark Broom. Our top story this lunchtime, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un won re-election from the country's rubber stamp parliament on Wednesday, the first day of the Supreme People's Assembly's first session under Kim's leadership.
Despite earlier speculations of a major reshuffle, there were no significant changes to key posts. Our Hwang Sang-hee starts us off.
At the first session of the 13th Supreme People's Assembly on Wednesday, North Korea re-elected Kim Jong-un as the head of the country's highest decision-making body.
It was declared that our Supreme Leader Kim Jong-un was confirmed as the first chairman of the National Defense Commission of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea.
The young Kim was named chairman 2 years ago, capping his rise to power following the sudden death of his father in December 2011. The first session of the country's highest legislative body is an occasion to find out who's in and who's out of North Korea's ruling circle. Figurehead President Kim Young-nam remained in office, sitting next to the young Kim and even giving a speech. There had been speculation the 86-year-old was going to step down after 15 years of service.
Supreme Leader Kim Jong-un is the most prominent politician of our time.
Choi Ryong-hae, the top political officer in North Korean People's Army, who has emerged as a rising star under the young Kim, was elected as one of the 3 vice chairmen of the powerful National Defense Commission. With that, Choi filled the post that has been vacant since the execution of Chang Song-taek, once the second most powerful man in North Korea. Prime Minister Park Bong-ju, who is in charge of the regime's economic policies, also remained in office. With no major reshuffle, experts say the young leader will maintain the North's existing policies for now to stabilize his power base. North Korea named Lee Soo-yong, former ambassador to Switzerland, as its new foreign minister. Some say the move reflects the regime's will to bolster its ties with the Western world. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
South Korea and the West appear to be easing up a bit on their preconditions for a resumption of 6-party nuclear talks with North Korea, but that doesn't mean they remain any less determined to denuclearize the North. South Korea's top diplomat has warned Pyongyang that a 4th nuclear test will come at a high cost for the regime. Our Yoo Li-an reports.
South Korea's Foreign Minister Byung-se has issued a new warning to Pyongyang. Carry out a 4th nuclear test and pay an unimaginable cost. Speaking at a forum on reunification Thursday, Yoon said that the international community, including China, stands unified and is determined to denuclearize North Korea. Yoon's strong words come as members of the 6-party talks continue efforts to get Pyongyang back to the negotiating table to discuss denuclearization. Sources in Washington says China's top nuclear envoy Woo Da-wei will visit Washington soon to discuss the outcome of his 4-day trip to North Korea late last month and the possible resumption of 6-party talks. The news of Woo's visit comes a day after South Korea, the United States, and Japan agreed to be a bit more flexible when dealing with North Korea. The 3 had been previously firm that talks would only resume if Pyongyang were to take concrete steps to end its nuclear program. Now that the 3 nations appear ready to compromise, attention turns to China and its role as mediator. China remains North Korea's biggest ally, and narrowing down the different political interests of the six-party members is the biggest factor in a resumption of six-party nuclear talks with North Korea. The talks have been stalled since late 2008 because of Pyongyang's repeated provocations. Yoo Li-an, Arirang News.
Now, amid fresh threats of another nuclear test by North Korea, the United Nations North Korea Sanctions Committee will convene an emergency meeting on Thursday, local time. The committee is expected to discuss Pyongyang's recent missile launches and address concerns that a fourth nuclear test may be in the works. This is the first meeting between the 15-member nations since North Korea fired a series of ballistic missiles late last month. The UN Security Council has said the missile launches were a violation of UN resolutions and that it will come up with necessary countermeasures. Korea's newly formed main opposition party has backtracked on a promise to do away with the system of nominating candidates for local elections in June. The ruling Saenuri Party was quick to pounce with criticism. Ji Myung-gil has more.
The main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy announced Thursday that the party will field candidates for lower-level administration chiefs and councillors in the June local elections, reversing an earlier pledge to abolish the nomination system altogether. The party reached the decision after a public opinion survey and an intra-party vote showed that 53% were in favor of maintaining the current system. This means the party will select its own candidates to run in the local elections that are under 2 months away. Earlier, the party's co-leader An Cheol-soo said he would respect the survey results and follow them. The ruling Saenuri Party immediately criticized the move, saying the newly unified opposition party had already thrown away its bid for New Politics by overturning numerous promises. New Politics has been An's trademark policy since entering politics in 2012. He says it's aimed at restoring public confidence in politics by eliminating corruption and having politicians lay down their vested interests. Abolishing the party-centered nomination system was a key campaign pledge of both the ruling and opposition parties during the 2012 presidential campaigns, with many believing it acts as a breeding ground for bribery and corruption. Ji Myung-gil, Arirang News.
The council President Park Geun-hye is leaning on to help her realize a creative economy has delivered its latest suggestions. Better collaboration between the public and private sectors topped the list this Thursday. Choi Yoo-sun has the details.
President Park's advisors say the technology of public research institutes and the business management infrastructure of the private sector should merge to realize the president's vision for a creative economy. At a meeting of the Presidential Science and Technology Council Thursday, the head of Daegu Gyeongbok Institute of Science and Technology spoke about how Korea stands just 39th in the world in terms of the economic benefits from acquired skills in the field of science and technology. Referring to what are called technology investment companies, Shin Sung-chul said public institutes are allowed to only focus on research while private firms take over the management. The profits from commercialization can then be reinvested back into research. A special committee of engineering experts and government officials also reported to President Park about the need to innovate Korea's engineering schools and how to go about doing it. They said while the number of university engineering school graduates in Korea topped OECD rankings last year, the graduates often lack practical skills and struggle to adapt in the field. That, according to the committee, is because schools assess and hire professors based on the number of their theses, not their on-site experiences. Also, they say there aren't enough exchanges between industries and universities. The presidential advisors then said schools should assess professors based more on practicality and motivate them to gain more experience in the private sector. They added businesses should be encouraged to cooperate with universities and the government could act as a bridge between the two sides. The proposed measures will be presented at a public hearing before they're drafted into a government plan. Choi Yoo-sun, Arirang News.
Now, in case you're wondering what the government should place a priority on when planning next year's budget, well, it turns out the people want it to be job creation. This according to a recent survey conducted by the Finance Ministry. 35% of those polled said the government should dedicate most of its budget towards generating jobs in 2015. Supporting the livelihoods of the public followed at 20%. As for next year's economic outlook, 4 out of 5 Koreans think conditions will stay the same or improve. The employment rate for Koreans between the ages of 15 and 64 stood at 64.5% last month, slightly lower than the OECD average of 65%.
There were no surprises in the first rate-setting session for the new Bank of Korea Governor Lee Ju-yeol. The central bank has left its key interest rate unchanged at 2.5% for the 11th straight month in April. Following its monthly monetary policy meeting on Thursday, the bank said the economy at home and abroad continues to recover at a moderate pace. It did, however, note the risk coming from emerging markets due to the U.S. Federal Reserve's stimulus tapering. The nation's inflation rate ran below the BOK's target band for the 22nd straight month in March, standing at 1.3%. Meanwhile, the central bank has raised its economic growth outlook for Korea to 4% for this year and 4.2% for next, up 0.2 percentage points each. We'll have more updates on that in our later newscasts. The Korean won, meanwhile, hit a new 68-month high against the U.S. dollar on Thursday. It opened trading at 1,035 won to the dollar, strengthening 0.6% from Wednesday's close. Analysts say the local currency's strength was due largely to the U.S. Federal Reserve's recent indications that it won't raise interest rates anytime soon. Korea's finance ministry said Thursday morning it was closely monitoring the foreign exchange market, suggesting that it could take action to stop a sudden swing in the local currency market. Apple's lawyers have been breaking down the company's $2.2 billion damages request against Samsung, arguing the Korean company's alleged patent infringement had cost it that much in lost profits and royalties. At the 5th day of their patent trial in California, Apple's damages experts said the huge sum of money was justified due to the scope and timing of the infringement on 5 of Apple's patents. The U.S. firm says the infringement occurred between August 2011 and December 2013, when the smartphone market was going through a rapid expansion. Apple also claims Samsung sold more than 37 million products that stepped on its patents during that period. If Apple can't convince the jury that the Korean firm is guilty of patent infringement, it can ask the court to ban Samsung from selling its phones and tablets in the U.S.
Now, for a look at the international headlines we're following at this hour, we're going to turn it over to our Eunice Kim, who's standing by at the news center.
Eunice, another attack at an American high school has sent shockwaves through a local community there.
Indeed, this time it's in Westmoreland County in Marysville, Pennsylvania, and it was Wednesday morning local time, Jinju, when a high school sophomore quietly wielded 2 kitchen knives through a crowded hallway, then went from classroom to classroom, wounding 22 people, mostly his fellow students, before he was taken down by the school's assistant principal. All this reportedly happened in about 5 minutes' time. The suspect has been identified as 16-year-old Alex Hreibel. He has been charged as an adult and faces 4 counts of attempted homicide, 21 counts of aggravated assault, and 1 count of possession of weapon on school grounds. At least 4 of the wounded are said to be in critical condition. The Ukrainian government has posed an ultimatum to pro-Russian separatists occupying state buildings in eastern cities: enter talks or be forced out. Interior Minister Arsen Avakov said either way the situation would be resolved within 48 hours. Some have chosen to leave a Luhansk security service office. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin suggested that state-run gas company Gazprom should require Ukraine to pay up front for its gas. Ukraine owes owes Gazprom $2.2 billion and remains at the brink of bankruptcy. The U.S. State Department has raised concern that the political conflict capturing Thailand will intensify to prompt a military coup to overthrow the elected government. According to acting Thai Foreign Minister Surapong Towichak-Chaikun, the concern was delivered in a letter by U.S. Assistant Secretary of State Daniel Russell during a meeting with acting Thai Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra. Anti-government protesters have been calling for Prime Minister Shinawatra to step down for the past 6 months. The government currently serves in a capacity of caretaker, which prohibits it from engaging in any major ASEAN-related business. And staying in Southeast Asia, we turn next to some preliminary vote results following Wednesday's massive elections in Indonesia. In the lead is the country's biggest opposition party, the Indonesian Democratic Party of Struggle, with about 20% of the votes, 5% more than the runner-up and traditional longtime ruling Golkar Party. Its lead gives its presidential hopeful and popular Jakarta governor Joko Widodo a boost. The world's third largest democracy after India and the U.S. will pick its next president on July 9th. Official results for Wednesday's elections will be released next month. And Greece will reissue sovereign bonds on this Thursday for the first time in nearly 4 years, after facing an economic crisis that rocked Europe and nearly got itself pushed out of the Eurozone 2 years ago. The move is meant to send a strong economic and political message of its strides out of its debt crisis. Reuters, citing a Greek government official, reported Greece is aiming to raise up to 2.5 billion euros, issuing the 5-year bonds. The price has yet to be set, but Greece has already attracted investor interest to the tune of more than $15 billion. The Greek economy has been sustaining on EU and IMF bailout funds and treasury bills.
Stay up to date on the latest news out of Korea, connecting to our team of reporters about the issues that matter to Korea. On air, on your mobile, online. Find out more about Korea on NEWSLINE at noon with Mark Broom and Jin-ju.
Market researcher, strategy analytics, said Thursday that LG Electronics brought in about 11. A 15-year-long legal tussle between lung cancer patients and Korean cigarette maker KT&G has come to an end, with the nation's top court ruling in favour of the tobacco company. The Supreme Court ruled this Thursday against a group of lung cancer patients who claimed their years-long smoking habit was the cause of their illness. They have been demanding financial compensation from KT&G. This dispute dates back to 1999, when the plaintiffs, comprised of 30 people, filed a damages suit against the company, alleging it used chemical additives to enhance the addictive effect of its cigarettes. Two lower courts had earlier thrown out the plaintiff's case. One cited a lack of evidence to support the correlation between lung cancer and smoking, while the other would only acknowledge that smoking may increase the chance of contracting cancer. Now, millions of websites may have been leaking critically sensitive data for the past 2 years or so due to a flaw in software used to encrypt and transmit personal data. Shin Se-min reports.
Millions of passwords, credit card numbers, and other sensitive information may be at risk from Heartbleed, a security bug in an obscure kind of software. The bug was accidentally added to software called OpenSSL that sets up an encrypted data channel between computer users and a website's remote server. A small padlock icon appears on websites using OpenSSL to reassure users, but the so-called Heartbleed loophole could have left it open to exploitation by hackers. A Finnish online security firm and Google Security, who disclosed a threat, say the glitch went undetected for at least 2 years. Security experts are advising the public to upgrade their own security practices and change all their passwords. Experts fear hackers may have already been exploiting the problem before its discovery. The Canadian Revenue Agency even shut off all its access to its online tech services because the Heartbleed bug has made the data on major websites vulnerable. Fortunately, most major web services such as Google, Yahoo, Facebook, and large banks say they have already applied fixes to the affected servers and services. However, it could be days or weeks before smaller websites that rely on OpenSSL fix the issue. Because a Heartbleed attack leaves no trace behind and the potential damage is significant, websites that use OpenSSL are advised to act as though they've been compromised. The extent of damage from the bug remains unknown. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Now, it goes without saying that since its creation all the way back in 1989, the World Wide Web has changed the way we interact, the way we work, and the way we live. The future of the web is being discussed as well with some of the greatest minds in the field. This week in Seoul, our Kim Ji-yeon filed this report from the World Wide Web Conference 2014.
The 23rd Annual International World Wide Web Conference 2014 opened in Seoul on Wednesday. The conference provides the world with a forum to discuss the development of the web, the standardization of its associated technologies, and its impact on society and culture. At this year's conference, co-hosted by KAIST and the Korean Agency for Technology and Standards, experts from a variety of web-related fields address what roles the web plays and what opportunities and challenges lie ahead. Tim Berners-Lee, who first conceived of the World Wide Web in 1989, was among one of the forum panelists that discussed what to expect over the next 25 years. Berners-Lee is part of a movement called the Web We Want that argues for law and order or a Bill of Rights of sorts for online freedom and impartiality. He said the openness of the web is currently under threat by big governments and conglomerates worldwide.
And we'll start taking the web more for granted. Then there will be other things that maybe that we get access to. So there will be questions like, will the incredible open software which allows you to get open courseware.
Berners-Lee goes as far as to say that the web as we know it today could suddenly disappear in the future, where larger entities would put more clamps on the freedoms we currently enjoy. He said the public needed to be more aware of the possibility. On Thursday, the forum will focus more on how to tame the web and its many dangers, such as privacy and security breaches. The forum held in Seoul runs until Friday. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Now, if like a lot of people you use Twitter or Facebook and you're in a relationship with someone, you could be at a higher risk of cheating or even divorce. That's the claim of a new study out of the University of Missouri. According to the research at a student, the more active a person is on Twitter, the more likely they were to experience problems with their romantic partners. That could include emotional and physical cheating, breaking up or even divorce. The research is from a survey of more than 500 Twitter users of all ages. The students' previous research also found that Facebook-related conflicts could lead to relationship problems.
Well, due to northeasterly winds, the East Coast regions will have highs 5 to 6 degrees lower than yesterday. So it will be similar or warmer in the western parts of the peninsula, but cooler in the eastern regions, and a bit of clouds will stick around before clearing later this afternoon. And it seems like the level of dust levels will be relatively high in the eastern parts of the peninsula today, so please have a dust mask with you before heading out. Also, the dryness in the air continues. The dry weather watch is still in place since Tuesday, so be extra cautious when handling fires. But thankfully, we do have some rain on the way. Tomorrow will be another warm and dry day, but rain is in the forecast on Saturday down south before spreading nationwide on Sunday. With that in mind, let's take a closer look at the readings for today. The high in the capital will rise to 20, while Daegu gets up to 19, and Gwangju and Busan should top out at 24 and 19 respectively. And for other regions, it looks like down in Jeju and Daejeon will peak at 19 and 22, and Mount Kumgang should see a high of 8 this afternoon. Well, that's all I have for you today. Enjoy your lunch break and hope you have a wonderful rest of the day.
And on that note, it's the end of Newsline at noon for today, and those are the stories we're following at this hour.
Mark and I will be back at the same time tomorrow. Thank you for watching.